838, more like, ain't this the greatest update? I'm sick, dude. I'm pretty sure I only find that funny because I'm sick. That's not my usual sense of humor. Or at least I'm going to cope and say that, because that might be my regular sense of humor. In the most recent update to Summoners War, we got 6 incredibly relevant secret dungeons added to the list. So let's talk about them. We're going to go through each one and talk about why you may want to farm one stat. You can essentially break up the 6 into 2 categories, dot synergies and damage options. Let's talk about the dot synergies first. Sath and Thrain are no-brainers for this one. Sath doubles dot damage on his passive, and that is a symmetrical effect, but it honestly rarely comes into play where it would affect you. And then there's Thrain, who has non-hitting dots on skill 2, as well as stun and turn cycling on skill 3. And lastly, there's Gina, the Dark Mystic Witch, who's got sleep and dots on skill 3, as well as buff block. Now that all 3 of these units are readily available, people are going to find it much easier to assemble a dot team for Trial of Ascension Hard. The only thing I'll caution you against if you're using them on the same team for TOA is to make sure that Gina moves last, so that way another unit doesn't accidentally wake everybody up after she went through all the trouble of sleeping them. Dot teams are also an incredibly relevant option for arena offenses nowadays too. Sath has found a new home in there as an option to take on some troublesome defenses. And Gina also has a role as a damage dealer in Steel Fortress. In fact, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch the Steel Fortress Abyss guide on the channel, she is featured in there on a crit damage build. She's like incredibly helpful for clearing out waves ahead of the boss. The second category that we're going to cover are the damage options. And these are particularly great to me because they make a lot of teams that I've recommended on the channel more accessible for people. First of all, there's Naomi, the Wind Marshal Cat. One of my favorite damage dealers for new players, and she's got a really interesting gimmick once she's second awakened. Naomi will auto crit on her passive as long as there's a debuff present on the target. So that means as long as you have somebody move ahead of her, like a Lauren for instance, to apply defense break, Naomi will automatically crit. And that's great because ruining a monster can sometimes be a little difficult, and having to worry about both crit rate and crit damage can be troublesome for new players. So for her, I'm happy to report all you have to do is throw her on a rage set and prioritize crit damage and have her on as little crit rate as humanly possible, and she'll function just fine. Naomi has use in Giants, and she was just recently recommended as part of an Alunia team on the channel. Next is Lynn, the Light Amazon, who has max HP scaling damage on every single one of her skills. She was actually recently featured on the top 10 fake passives video for that same reason. Summoners War has presented us quite a few opportunities nowadays to slam down a Lynn on a team and just benefit from it. Lynn also loves a rage set. You can rune her on either attack, crit damage HP, speed crit damage HP, whatever it takes to get her that damage, but crit damage is going to be more impactful than her attack. Finally, we saved the best for last. It's Shaman the Light Griffin. I've spoken to so many people recently who have yet to summon a Shaman, and he's a staple in a ton of different team comps, and you can actually use him pretty much anywhere. I'm using him on a speed team in Giants right now. You can bring him into Dragons if you want. A last hitting damage dealer in Necro is great. He's also great in Calderon, where the boss is dark. Shaman is awesome because he has max HP damage scaling on skill 2, a heal on skill 1, and he has increased damage against dark element monsters on his passive. Each one of these monsters have been highly requested to be added into the secret dungeon pool, so make sure you tackle each of them when you get the opportunity. Obviously, they are all stellar in their own ways, but if I had to tell you to prioritize one, I would say get Shaman as soon as humanly possible. After that, go for the dot synergy monsters if you haven't cleared Trial of Ascension Hard yet, and then go through and get the other damage dealers. All right, later, I'm gonna go take some